So here we go, recording in progress. So welcome to Telraam Talks, the June edition. So today on the menu we have, I think, a small update on the stock, and then maybe a brief elaboration on the latest blog post on Telraam data, which I think might be useful for both of you, Marco and Mario. And then we basically jump to whatever is relevant for the group. And the group here today is the Essen group, so interesting. The guidelines of adding your questions in chat, I mean, we're going to ignore that. If you have questions, you just jump in. But that's it. So we'll try to keep it in 30 minutes always, because it's an evening and we have our evening. So, but yeah, we'll rush pretty fast to the agendas, to the things that we want to discuss. So yeah, go ahead, Rob. Next slide. So, not sure if you've been to the web shop lately, but unfortunately, again, we've had to put this banner on that we're out of stock. Well, unfortunate, obviously, because it's good, because it seems that we got some. I mean, we're getting a lot of customers, so that's good. But our supplier was a bit late with the next batch, so it's a bit annoying. I now have a final due date, at least for the delivery with us. So it's mid-July, and then we'll have the next 500. And I've also taken care of future deliveries to be on time. So we should never be out of stock ever again. So, but for us, don't worry. I mean, there's still plenty coming in. And hi, Kjeld. Good evening. And for Copenhagen as well, I've reserved a few from the latest one, which from the previous batch. So you're good.
Good to hear.
So, guys, for intro, Marco, Kjeld is he's Dutch, but he's in Copenhagen, and he has just secured that Copenhagen City Authority has bought 16 Telraam devices. So for Copenhagen, so we're quite excited actually. So they're very lucky to have the last ones from the latest batch, and not to worry. So then, yeah, go ahead, Rob. So what I briefly want to talk about, and I think it's a nice intro, Marco, Mario, on Telraam data. So I didn't bring a device with me, so I don't have a generic show for what the Telraam sensor is. But in short, Rob's got one, so that's the sensor. The thing I want to discuss briefly is what you can do with the Telraam data, because especially after a long period of time, what can you actually do? So there's a long blog post I dropped on that, I think last month, and just want to dive in there and pick up on a few highlights. So I think the first one is, if you plot time series, you basically can see trends over a long period of time. So it already shows you when there are anomalies, let's say, in bikes or cars. So this is a graph I made myself from an export from the data. So it immediately shows you what periods, for example, you can focus on to get some insights on. Did something happen? There was road construction works on that period. So, I mean, can I see this in the data? And the time series give you like an on-the-glance view. Now, what you should be careful for with time series, obviously, is that Telraam only counts during daylight. So if you're plotting daily totals, you will in any case see like trend in the daily evolutions, because during summertime, you're counting for a longer period of time per day compared to winter. So you should always limit that to either to the hours of the day that there's all year round counting data, or you should just skim on the peak hours, for example. And that's what I've done here. And you can immediately see the trend clear on an hourly resolution. So that was one example. Yeah, go ahead, Rob, next slide. So what I think, so the time series give you like a good on-the-glance view with these caveats and these risks, but where I think that Telraam data is really powerful is these long, is the typical traffic over a long period of time. So what you want to understand is how does typical traffic look like? And this can be volumes and speeds, by the way. So you got this for volumes, amount of cars, but also the average speed or the V85 for a period. So here are two graphs which show on the left-hand side the typical day. I think this is a typical weekday, and the typical pattern is most often like a small, sharp morning peak and an extended evening peak. So this example is a bit atypical because the morning peak is not so present, and it's more or less flat and busy during the day, except for the bike. So the green line that shows like a very recognizable pattern of like a small distinct morning peak and a more extended evening peak. So I think about 2/3 of all streets have some kind of pattern in this direction. Now this allows you then to compare the typical traffic over different periods, which is the next one. So here what we did here. I think this is an example of a street in Brussels where there was an installation of a bike lane, I think one of the car lanes was swapped for a bike lane, and you can see on the left hand side, so the blue line is the period before the intervention, how many cars there were during the day for a typical day, so measuring over a period, in this case of about a month. So in yellow, in blue, the period before the intervention, and yellow, the period after the intervention. Always a full month, so you got enough data to get an idea of the typical traffic. So the full lines are the weekdays, and the dotted lines are the weekends. And on the right hand side, you see the same thing, but for bikes. And our conclusion there is quite clear. So you can see that the evening peak, the bikes in the evening peaks have increased in the period after. You can see there's like a clear offset for every hour of the day where it has increased. So it's not a lot, but it's there, and it's significant. It's significant. Why? Because it's clear for every hour of the day, and it's also present both for weekdays as weekends. So the dotted line as well, you can see how it picked up. So this is what Telraam data can offer you. What Telraam data you can do with your Telraam or any other Telraam. And this is just one use case. So I think the key thing that where you can work with the Telraam data and to the max, where you can exploit to the max, is these long-term measurements, and then comparing how traffic has changed over a long period of time. So next slide. And then this an ending closing sentence from the blog post, and I do invite you to read the full blog post because it's got some good ideas as well on other data interpretation things. So what our philosophy is with Telraam is that we're completely open and transparent in the data. So that means that there's also error in the data, and we're not hiding it. It's right there. And what I just want to mention is that I prefer much more data informed rather than data driven, because the data can drive you in the wrong direction. You should know how to interpret. The blog post gives some more ideas there. So the clearest example is, do not compare the total volumes of passenger cars, for example, from mid-December versus mid-June, because they will differ because there's more traffic being counted in June. So if you compare the typical traffic between the hours of the day in December and June, that's different. Then that's something that you can definitely compare. So just want to leave it at that and not take too much time me pontificating and preaching, because this is my passion, of course. But there's some good thoughts, and I do invite you to just check the blog.